Put device. Microphone. Buffet. Okay. Alright, hello, can you hear me now? I hope you can. Alright, better. No audio, better, better. Hey, Ivan Jumper. Hey, Kai Brazil. How's it going? Okay. Alright, TikTok, can you hear me? Please. Okay, once again, happily bringing the show back to TikTok. I am biggergayer Magic, or BGM, and tonight we have a Patreon request from Articulate Particulate. Thank you so much, Articulate Particulate, for your patronage. I appreciate you immensely. And you wanted to talk about Azira the Golden Sting. And this little 4-drop legendary Jund insect assassin is a flying, hasty creature. And whenever this thing attacks, we get to put an egg counter on something. And we really want those things with egg counters to die, because when they die, we draw a card, and we make a little insect with flying. It's cool. This feels a little bit like an aristocrat-style commander to me. We want lots of death triggers. We want things to happen when our stuff dies. We want to kill our stuff on purpose, and we also, most importantly, need to be attacking with Zira, so we need a little bit of... Zira needs some spice. She's little. She's only a 3/3. Okay. Trying hard to focus on deck building with such a handsome... Oh! Chase Hanat, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thank you. I'm glad. You guys... Uh-oh. TikTok has helped me build my self-esteem so much. All the guys are just so happy to see me. I find that very silly. Okay, so do we have any suggestions for our Zero the Golden Sting deck? I don't see any yet. I put some cards away. So we are going to talk about this Blood Tracker. Blood Tracker feels like something I saw in a binder, and I was like, that feels like it could go in Zero. It's a budget card. It's 50 cents. It's been put in multiple precons. I took mine out today from the Strixhaven Golgari precon. I have it right here. It's rad. It's 4 mana. It's 50 cents. It's a vampire wizard, and it's a 2/2 flyer. It's got an activated ability that says you can pay 2 life, a black mana, and you put a +1/+1 counter on the Blood Tracker. And you want your Blood Tracker to be big. I'm not sure if we want to invest that much mana and that much life into this thing. Probably want some other way to make it spicy. But when this thing leaves the battlefield, draw a card for each +1/+1 counter on it. That's cool, so we know that this thing wants to die, and we know that it wants to get big before it dies. And I felt like that would fit in really good with our commander tonight, Zira, the Golden Sting, because Zira's attack trigger puts an egg counter on something, and then it wants the thing it put the counter on to die, because when the thing dies, we draw a card, and we make a little 1/1 token off of Zira. Thank you so much for the follow, Corvold. I appreciate it. I am BGM. I do live deck building. I'm really happy to be back on TikTok. I'll tell you what. So if any of you have a suggestion of something you would pop into a Zira the Golden Sting commander deck, please put it on the comments. If I talk about it over here, it'll be put into a Moxfield deck list, and y'all can see all the viewer suggestions on the Moxfield deck list. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with me. We're going to talk about Adina, the Soul Steeper, because we don't have any suggestions yet. Oh, we got a Deceiver of Bolas. We got a Deceiver of Bolas. What the hell is a Deceiver of Bolas? Deceiver. D-I-C-I-P-H-E-R. Deceiver of Bolas. Deceiver of Bolas sounds like a... Okay. Deceiver. I'm going to say that D-I... Can I please get a spell check on the word Deceiver? Oh, damn, I'll follow you up. Thank you! I appreciate it. Appreciate it, Corvold. Can I please get a spell check on the... Is it Disciple of Bolas? Disciple of Bolas. I think it's I know what Disciple of Bolas. It's a cool little sack card. Demon's Disciple. Yeah, this thing's amazing. I love this. I ran this in a Jund Big Creatures Matter because this thing has a cool little sack trigger on the ETB. It gains you a bunch of life. It draws you a bunch of cards, but you gotta sacrifice something juicy. Because this thing says that you gain life and draw cards where X is a sacrificed creature's power when this thing has its ETB trigger resolve. I like this thing quite a lot. And the thing that I find especially spicy about this thing is because you're already wanting to be in a deck that sacrifices stuff. This guy enters, he's done. He did his thing when he enters. I have no problem sacrificing him too. And he's just a body. He's not even a relevant, he's a 2/1. Sacrifice him. He can do stuff. He can make us some insect count tokens off our egg counters, off Zira. Yeah, I like a Disciple of Bolas. Disciple of Bolas is rad. It draws you multiple cards. Yeah. The Forsaken Miner says, Vash. Thank you, Vash, over on Twitch. Appreciate it. You say Forsaken Miner. Forsaken Miner. Forsaken Miner is a mono black single mana creature. It's a 2/2 skeleton rogue printed in Thunder Junction, and this thing can't block. And whenever you commit a crime, that means you target someone's thing. You may pay black, and if you do, you return it from your graveyard to the battlefield. So that to the battlefield effect, if that's the spicy wording on this thing. So this thing wants to be sacrificed multiple times. It's a little sacrificable dude. And something spicy, let's read 0 one more time. So 0 says whenever it attacks, you put an egg counter on another target creature without an egg counter on it. That can be our opponent's creatures. That feels cool. So if we want to commit crimes with 0, because we need to target one of our opponent's things to do crimes, we could use 0's trigger to commit the crime, to recur this thing, and maybe we sacrifice this thing to a different sack outlet for some other value. I like that quite a bit. We got crime. We can commit crimes with our commander if we want to. If we know something on our opponent's board needs to die, we can put a counter on it, and maybe we have a kill spell. Motivates other people to kill it if we don't. 0's kind of cool. I kind of like 0. Or I guess it demotivates our opponents from killing it. All right, on TikTok, somebody says a tempting contract. Tempting contract. Okay, tempting contract. Tempting contract. Oh my god, tempting contract. We keep losing connection to TikTok Studio. We can't tell them about our tempting contract. Tempting contract is a 4-mana colorless artifact for $10. It looks like it was printed in a Strixhaven precon. And at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent may create a treasure token. For each opponent who does, you create a treasure token as well. So this is cool. If your 3 opponents decide to make treasure tokens off this tempting contract, you make 3 treasure tokens. That is very spicy. I like that a lot. This card's really good. This card can generate you a lot of ramp. It's $10. It's real good. I like it. In fact, I love it. I can't believe I've never seen this thing before. My favorite deck of last year was a Rakdos Treasure deck, and this thing would love that. But I tell you what, though, I've played a lot of that Rakdos Treasure deck. My opponents wouldn't let me have the treasure, so they wouldn't fall for it. It would just sit on the battlefield and do nothing. And because it gives our opponents the trigger, they can just choose to deny us our treasures, and that's a little bit of a bummer. But, you know, I like it. If you think that you can trick your friends into giving you treasures, this is an excellent card. Thank you for the suggestion. Alright, Ivan Jumper says a nesting ground. Nesting? I saw your Ozolith too, Ivan Jumper. Nesting grounds. Nesting grounds. So I skipped your Ozolith because we're going to see the Ozolith a million times. Any commander we run with counters. We'll see it later tonight, I promise. So Nesting Grounds is a little bit of a colorless land, and it taps for colorless, and it enters untapped. It's 40 cents, and it's got a second activated ability that we can pay 1 and tap it and move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent. Activate only as a sorcery. I love this. 10 out of 10. This is the Ozolith at home, and it doesn't cost $40. It costs 40 cents, and I like that a lot. The art's a bit of a vibe. It was printed in Modern Horizons 3, it seems like. I like this quite a bit. If we, like, let's say we can't kill one of our boys for some reason that we slammed a counter on it with our commander, we could use this thing to move our commander's counter to something else, and I like that. And it's also low costed at 1 mana to move the counter, and especially in a Zera deck, because Zera only puts 1 egg counter at a time, we don't get rewards for popping something with multiple egg counters. In fact, we can't even target it to put it multiple egg counters on it, and it doesn't care if we proliferate them. So we're, like, this thing moves a singular counter. Zera has a singular relevant counter that she plops down with a trigger. This is super synergistic. I really like this suggestion. Thank you, Ivan Jumper. Nesting ground. Okay, your mom over on TikTok says that we should play Tempting Contract with Land Destruction. And you know what, your mom, you can do that if that's who you want to be, but that's not who I want to be. BCM Raider, good to see you. Agitator Ant. I love Agitator Ant. I have thought a lot about buying. Oh, good. They reprinted this thing. This thing used to be like $10. This thing is a 3-mana mono red insect, and it's a 2/2. Hey, it's an insect. Maybe we have a relevant creature type. Maybe. And at the beginning of your end step, each player may put 2 counters on a creature they control. Go to each of those creatures that had counters put on it this way. So something relevant about Agitator Ant, we get the trigger as well if it is our Agitator Ant, so it can make our creatures bigger a little bit at a time. It's an insect that cares about counters, kind of like our commander. I like it. I like it a lot. It's relevant. It kind of interacts with our opponent, because if they have creatures that they want to swing with anyway, like maybe some Voltron commanders, they might slam some counters on it with the Agitator Ant, and then they have to swing at people that aren't us, because it'll be goaded. And I like that a bit. It interacts with a level of agency that I really enjoy in a commander game, because it does give them the opportunity to not put the counters on it. I vibe. Thank you, BCM Raider, for the suggestion. Ivan Jumper over on Twitch says a Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. Wolfgar is rad. I like Wolfgar. Wolfgar is gruel. Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. Yeah, there's Wolfgar. He's a D&D creature from, it looks like Baldur's Gate. Nope, he's from the D&D set, not Baldur's Gate. He is 5 mana. He's a Gruul Human Barbarian 4/4 with melee. Let's look up what melee means. Whenever this creature attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each opponent you attacked. Cool. So this thing can get +1/+1 for each opponent we're attacking, and get +3/+3 off the melee trigger. And if a creature you control attacking would cause a triggered ability of a creature you control to trigger, it triggers an additional time. 10 out of 10. Best possible thing. I love him. He's $6. I love him. He's amazing. He's also a little hot. So the thing about Wolfgar and Zira, our commander tonight, is Zira does her whole little eggy counter, pop the creature, draw a card, make a token thing on attack triggers. And if we got multiple things we want to put on the board, we could put egg counters on our opponent's creatures in the hopes that people will kill them eventually. And if we can do that twice, we can draw twice the amount of cards and make twice the amount of insect tokens. And running Wolfgar also incentivizes us to run other attack triggers. There is a Mardu deck, which is a white, red, and black that is really popular that just doubles attack triggers. Wolfgar is cool, though. I like Wolfgar. Fumulus the Infestation. Lol over on TikTok suggests a Fumulus the Infestation. Fumulus the Infestation. Hey everybody, I am biggergayer Magic. I do live deck building. If you want to vote on what commanders we talk about on live deck building, I have a Discord server. That's in the link tree. Yeah, this is Fumulus. He is a 4-mana mono black insect vampire flying death touching 2/2. And whenever a player sacrifices a non-token creature, we make ourselves a flying black insect creature token. And whenever an insect, leech, slug, or worm you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. 10 out of 10, would recommend. This thing's amazing. I like it a lot. It is a relevant, this thing, I don't quite believe we're in a insect tribal theme with Zira by herself, but this thing is amazing with Zira, because Zira makes insect creature tokens. This thing makes black insect creature tokens, and it gives us attack triggers. This thing is amazing. I love it, and it heals us. It gives us life gain on top of it. It's $5 though. I like, this card's actually really good. I think I saw one of these and I was like, whatever. But in the context of Zira, this thing really excites me. I like this a lot. This thing kind of feels like the second best card in the Zira deck. Honestly, amazing. Great suggestion. Hey, Puppy, how's it going over on Twitch? Thanks for hanging out with me. You say Fumulus, he is in the Hans Eriksson deck. You should look at Hans Eriksson. Is Hans Eriksson in our colors identity? Yeah, Hans Eriksson is Gruul. He's a 4-mana human scout for 50 cents. And he says, whenever Hans Eriksson attacks, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put it onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking, defending player or planeswalker they control. Otherwise, you put that card into your hand. When you put a creature card into the battlefield this way, it fights Hans Eriksson. If it's a creature card, it fights Hans Eriksson. Weird. Very strange. So I guess the way we could synergize this for a Zera trigger is we would attack with Hans, and we would also attack with Zera. We would use Zera's ability, slam the counter onto Hans. So we take the counter from Zera, put it onto Hans, and then we would activate Hans, or trigger Hans, hope that we get something big off the top of our library, have the big thing enter, kill Hans with the fight trigger, getting us a card draw and a creature token. I guess that's how we would do that. He's interesting, but I have a hard time saying he's good because the thing he puts on the battlefield fights him. Like, it's so easy to kill him too. He's only got 4 toughness. But he's silly. He's silly. He can get us a free creature, and he kind of wants to die, which is great for Zera, I guess. So yeah, he does synergize, but he feels very clunky to me. Oh, I heart Reina. I don't actually build these decks. I just talk about them online. I have a big collection, and I would build lots. Like, I'd build a commander deck every week, and I'd take it apart, and I'm like, this is like time consuming. I'd rather just do it online, and I want to know what other people are playing. So this is live deck building. Zera's our commander, and if you have a card you would put in a Zero deck, you can put it in the chat. If you want to see any of the cards we talked about over here, you can see them in my Moxfield page on the dated deck list. Thank you for hanging out with me on Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok. However long we may be here on TikTok. This is Zangief. He's from Street Fighter. He is a 5-mana Jund commander. He's a 7/4. He's a human warrior, and he must be blocked if able, and as long as it's your turn, Zangief has Indestructible. Whenever Zangief deals damage to a creature, if that creature was dealt excess damage this turn, that creature's controller sacrifices a non-creature, non-land permanent. Okay. Okay, so he's kind of like a removal stick? I guess he's a removal stick. We attack with him, they likely block it, and maybe they lose a thing. But I feel like that incentivizes them not to block it and just take the damage. This card is $8, but I guess I don't get it. I don't love it. It's interesting. The art's rad. 10 out of 10 for the art. I love men who are hugging animals. Especially bears. Very cool for that, but like honestly, it feels underwhelming to me. Especially for an $8 card. Whenever it deals damage to a creature, if that creature was dealt excess damage, that creature's controller sacrifices or not. Yeah, so they just don't block it, and then they accept 7 damage or more. I feel like that's... And, I don't know, maybe in the command zone it's cool, because you'll be beefing it up like a Voltron-style commander. Must be blocked! Must be blocked. My mistake, Ivan Jumper. This thing has a lot of text on it, too. A lot of text on Zangief here. Marika. Marika! What the hell is Marika? Okay, I guess Marika's not a card. I'm building a Karlach. Oh my god, I love Karlach. I love Karlach in Baldur's Gate 3, and I also love Karlach, the $20 mono red card. Oh cool, this version's only $12. The other version's $20. This thing's rad. You should play it. It's super fun. Even if it's not your commander, it has the choose a background mechanic, which was put into Baldur's Gate, the set. And backgrounds are little enchantments that give your commanders bonus abilities, and all the background abilities give your commander's ability. They give them, like, quote, this ability to the commander. So, if you have 2 commanders, or you play the backgrounds in a partner deck where you got multiple commanders, it's just so spicy. It's so good. Highly recommend doing that in your partner decks. Anyway, back to Karlach. She's a 5/4 tiefling barbarian, and when she attacks, we get to attack again. Or not even when she attacks, whenever we attack, not just her. It's great, especially in a combat trigger commander like Zera. This will give us 2 Zera triggers every turn. I love this. 10 out of 10. And if we got not Hans Eriksson, if we got the other guy from Icewind Dale who gives us double combat triggers, that's really good. Also, I really like Karlach as a multiple combat creature because it feels fair. Because the way it's worded, you're only ever getting one multiple combat with multiple combat Karlach. I knew we were gonna see the Ozolith. Okay, so Grizzly the Gallant suggests an Ozolith. The Ozolith is rad. It's a lot of people's favorite counter card for a reason. It's amazing. It was $40. It's now $35. It's a singular mana, and because it's a singular mana and it's an artifact, a lot of artifact storm decks really want this card because it's a low mana artifact that can actually do something relevant. Because whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on the creature, you can put the counters that were on the creature on the Ozolith, which is amazing because we want to have a battlefield. Because Zero's attack trigger slams an egg counter on it, and we can get something to die when it has an egg counter on it. We draw a card, we make a 1/1 flyer. They're going to be leaving the battlefield. We can take that egg counter, put it on the Ozolith, and then at the beginning of combat on your turn, we can put it somewhere else. Amazing. So we can get multiple uses out of Zero's triggers, giving us kind of like endurance and longevity off the triggers, because it's kind of like the counters stay around. I like that. It's very good. It's very synergistic. I would recommend a proxy because this thing is $35. This is it looks like the Fallout secret lair, the Fallout art version of it. All right. Yeah, Wolfgar is we'll talk about Wolfgar again. I like Wolfgar. Wolfgar's $6. He's 5 mana. He's in Cruel Colors, and he doubles combat triggers. And that's super relevant for our Zero deck because Zero does the thing on a combat trigger. He's great. He also has melee. That means for each opponent you're attacking, he gets +1/+1, so he can get a bonus of +3/+3 off the melee trigger if you're attacking everybody. And you might just want to do that because these little 1/1 flyers, you can spread those around. They're not super relevant on their own, and you're not going to make a ton of them all at once, so you can spread them around, maybe get some melee triggers off of Wolfgar. He's a good time. Good suggestions. Oh, Ivan Jumper says Ansrag. Ansrag, and then Recon. Okay, we're gonna do Recons over on Twitch's suggestion next. You have the funnest name, Recon. Ansrag's Rampage is a 5 mana mono red sorcery, and for 60 cents, oh my god, 60 cents. Guys, buy this card. Straight up buy this card. This card's amazing. Cool. 5 mana, one-sided artifact. Board wipe, 60 cents, and you get value off it if you're in a creature deck. And you exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of artifacts that were put into the graveyard from the battlefield this turn. And you may slam a creature card, exile them onto the battlefield, and give it haste. And then you put it in your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So you get a random creature from your deck with this thing, and you blow up all your opponent's rocks. This card's amazing. Ivan Jumper, 10 out of 10 suggestion. I run this card. I bought multiple copies of this card. I just think this is one of my favorite red cards, period. Especially if you're running like a surplus of creatures. I don't think I'd run it in a non-creature deck, but this card's amazing. It's so good, and it makes your opponent so sad, and it feels fair to me. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. I think, and at 60 cents, you get the fancy Karlov art version too. I love that card. Thank you, Ivan. Alright, so you say, Recon says a Fist of the Demigod. Fist of the Demigod. Hey everybody, I'm BGM. I'm a video editor. I make silly little Magic the Gathering content all over the internet. If you're having a good time and you want to support me, you can jump on over to Twitch and help me monetize my content there. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me on TikTok. I'm thankful to be back with you. This is the Fist of the Demigod. It's a 2 mana Rakdos enchantment with my favorite frame. Frames are like the border of the card. They have different treatments. Treatments are the words we use as Magic players to describe the different arts. My favorite art frame treatment is the hybrid. The hybrid is where you have the 2 colors of the spell kind of like mixing and like ombreing into each other in the center. This thing is a little Rakdos aura, and it says the enchanted creature is black. It gets +1/+1 on Twitch. I hope. Well, I thought it was. My bad, guys. Okay. It looks like we're stable again. Yeah, so I like this thing. We can slam it on our commander, give it first strike, we can give it wither. Wither means that it deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. So even if like it hits a wall, it's gonna make the wall permanently smaller with this thing. I like it a lot. It's 40 cents, and I guess the foil version of it is $7. I like it a lot. I especially love the hybrid art treatment. Great card. Also, this card would be super fun in a Voltron Rakdos strategy as well. Ashling Frosty! I'm sorry. Frostays! I haven't seen you. Good to see you, Frostays. I feel like it's been. I hope you've been well. Good to see you, Frostays. Thank you for making the jump on over to Twitch for me. I appreciate it. You say Ashling the Extinguisher. I don't know. I'm just excited. You know, we went through that TikTok drama over the weekend, and then I haven't seen you in a little while. I don't know. Frostace has suggested me a lot of great cards on this show in the earlier stages before I had all the fancy greens. A lot. It's $7 though, and I don't know. It's cool. It is target sacrifice, and so the way that this card functions, I'm pretty sure that this thing actually gets around removal because of the way it's worded. It deals combat damage to a player. Choose target creature. Well, it does say target. Actually, I have no idea, and I'm not a judge, guys. I shouldn't say. But I know that there's something spicy about the way hexproof works and the verb choose. If there's a judge in the comments anywhere, please sound off. Oh, right. Ansrag the Quake Mole. Ansrag the Quake Mole is a rad card. I love this thing. I think he's like $5. He's a good time. He's the legendary creature of the namesake, the 5-mana sorcery that I think you guys should get. This is a 4-drop Gruul card. It's an 8/4, it's $5, and it's from the Murders at Karlov Manor set. And whenever Ansrag I'm really glad I haven't seen any Ansrag commander decks, because this thing would be a crazy Voltron. It's 4 mana, and it starts at 8 power. Well, if you want to vote on what commanders we talk about during live deck building, there is a Discord server, and we have a poll right now. If you want to vote on what commander we're going to talk about, as long as there are 4 or more card types, when cards in your graveyard, insects and spiders get +1/+1 and have Death Touch. This is super spicy, and it also gives them an irrelevant keyword in the form of Death Touch. Very good. We're still going on TikTok. Okay, I'm sorry, guys, for the connection issues. I'm not sure what's up. Yeah, Swarm Reaver's great. Good. Atlan Jackal. Alright, Atlan Jackal. Atlan Jackal. Okay, this thing's wild. This thing is from the Warhammer 40k expansion, those commander decks that came out a couple years ago. It's a 3-mana Gruul creature, and it's a human clogged up by then. You get in for damage, you get yourself a land. You can buff this thing a little bit, and keep swinging, and keep getting lands off it. I love this thing. This thing's amazing. That's probably why it's $5. It's great. Great suggestion. And it's so aggressively costed, too. Like, it's 3 mana. It's got haste, so it can get you a land the turn it enters. This thing is amazing. It can get you multiple lands. Of Zera's color identity, it will not come up in the search. I'm sorry. If you guys want to see any of the cards we talked about, though, y'all can check out my Moxfield page, and that is in the link tree. Niv-Mizzet Visionary, also, unfortunately, only Chris outside of our color identity. I am so sorry. Bob, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it. Oh, for Commander, I always use Kozilek the Great Distortion. Kozilek the Great... Yeah, we can pull up Kozilek. You like Kozilek? I don't know all the Kozileks by name, but I'm totally about to judge you based on how sweaty your Kozilek of choice is. Kozilek the Great Distortion. We should probably put more words in. Kozilek the Great Distortion. Alright, cool. This is 10 mana. It's a 12/12. When you cast Kozilek the Great Distortion, if you have fewer than 7 cards in your hand, you draw cards equal to the difference. It's got Menace, and you can discard a card with converted mana cost X to counter a spell with converted mana cost X. This is the least sweaty Kozilek, period. If you're running this as your commander, I feel like your deck is very fair and balanced. Unless you're doing some crazy combat combo where you draw your entire deck so that you can just counter everything. I've never seen someone be able to do that thing that hard with Kozilek before. Usually that's not his spice. Usually it's a few choice counters and then he kind of fizzles out. I like this. I respect this. The ones I don't like, if you're running Annihilator in the command zone, I'm gonna give you some side eye. Winter says put Tyrazine in there. Tyrazine. Uh-oh. T-Y-A... I mean, sorry. T-Y-R-A-Z-E-N. I'm sorry, can I please get a spell check on Tyrazine? Trazin. T-R-A-Z-E-N. Trazin. I'm sorry, guys. Trazin isn't coming up either. Niv-Mizzet Visionary is not going to come up because we're not running blue. If the card you suggest is outside of Zero's color identity of Jund, like black, red, and green, it's not going to come up in the search, y'all. I'm sorry. Yeah, so if we put Niv-Mizzet in there, if it comes up, I'm going to eat my hat. Yeah, we got nothing. Sorry. Yigra is a fun choice. I love Yigra. I was super excited when Yigra came out. I built Yigra, and I ended up taking it apart to build something else. But Yigra's rad. It's a $17 Golgari 5-drop cat elemental, and it's a 6/6 with ward, sacrifice of food. And no one's going to have a problem paying that ward cost because Yigra says that other creatures you control... I'm sorry, that other creatures, period, just other creatures, everybody's creatures, are food artifacts in addition to their other types. And whenever a food is put into a graveyard, you put 2+1/+1 counters on Yigra. This thing's amazing. It would be an excellent include in here, because Yigra wants stuff to die to make stuff bigger, and our commander, Zira, wants stuff to die with egg counters on it. So we could run this, and whenever we sacrifice a thing with the egg counters on it, Yigra will get bigger too. This thing's amazing. Yigra will also give us the ability to pay 2 mana and sacrifice them because they're foods. Very fun deck. When I built Yigra, I actually made custom food tokens of like Fancy Feast and like Meow Mix to have silly cat-themed food tokens. I really liked Yigra. Thank you very much for the follow, Justin H. I appreciate it. Attrition. Somebody without a username has suggested attrition. That's weird. I don't know how you did that, person without a username, but you're definitely cooler than I am. This is attrition. It's a 3-mana mono black enchantment for 20 bucks, and this thing's got an activated ability where you pay a single black mana, you sacrifice a creature, and you destroy a not black creature. This thing is hardcore, y'all. This thing ain't messing around. This thing is a hardcore removal stick. You can get rid of so many things, and you don't even need that much mana to do it. You just need to have some disposable creatures, and you can go bang, 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 and just take out a ton of things with this. You spend 3 mana, you sacrifice, I don't know, maybe 3 insect tokens off of Zira's triggers, and then you can turn them into removal by paying a singular black mana at instant speed. You can activate this at instant speed. This thing is absolutely coconuts. That's probably why it's $20. I like it a lot, though. If I wanted to throw $20 into a deck, and it needed more removal, this thing is more removal. I, however, am a Printing Proxies affiliate, and if you would like to spend 87 cents instead of $20, head on over to printingproxies.com. Aaron says a swarm yard, please. Swarm yard. Hey everybody, I'm BGM. I'm a video editor. I make silly little Magic the Gathering content all over the internet, primarily on TikTok, and on lives we do live deck building. If you have a suggestion for our Zero the Golden Sting deck, put it in the comments. If you see it over here, it'll be put into a Moxfield deck list. You can see that in the link tree. And if you want to vote on what commander we talk about tomorrow night, y'all can get into the Discord via the link tree as well. This is a Swarm Yard. This is a colorless land. It looks like it was printed in Bloomborough, and it's $11. It taps for colorless, and it enters untapped. And you can tap it to regenerate an insect, rat, spider, or squirrel. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Regenerate means specifically the next time it would be destroyed. Instead, you tap it, remove it from combat, heal all damage on it. Cool, so you tap it and it lives. I like that a lot. You can save a creature with it. Very cool. You can save your commander with it. And our commander wants things to die. This thing can save the things if they're dying and they're an insect. Insect is turning out to be a really relevant creature type. I didn't know how much insect support there was, really, in these colors. Insect, I have never seen an insect deck before. I imagine one existed in Golgari colors, but I've never seen it. Swarm Weaver. Did we see Swarm Weaver already? I don't know. Let's pull up a Swarm Weaver. Oh, we did see Swarm Weaver. Swarm Weaver's rad. This thing was printed in Duskmourn. It's a legendary artifact scarecrow creature for 4 mana in Golgari colors, and it's a 2/3. And when this thing enters, you create 2 black and green insect creature tokens with flying. A lot like Zera's little insect creature tokens with flying. This thing also has Delirium, meaning that if we have 4 different card types in our graveyard, we get this thing's extra effect. Card types are things like creature, artifact, enchantment, instant, sorcery, planeswalker, battle, probably a bunch of others I forgot. Those are card types. So if we have 4 different things among those in our graveyard, our little bugs are going to get +1/+1 and have Death Touch. Death Touch is a super significant keyword, and it really demotivates people from blocking our creatures. Very cool suggestion, thank you. Kept Evergreen, good to see you over on TikTok. Lethal Vapors. Lethal Vapors is interesting. I feel like I've lost to this. Okay, this thing's $4, it's 4 mana, it's in mono black, and whenever a creature comes into play, I hate it. Whenever a creature comes into play, destroy it. What? Pay 0 mana, destroy Lethal Vapors, you skip your next turn. Oh, yep, I know why I hate it. I paid, yep, I've skipped multiple turns off this card. I hate this card. Good job, Kept Evergreen. Good job. I hate this card. Do I have something to hit the camera with? You must be shamed. I hate it. Good job, I shame you. God, I hate this card. Okay. I hate it because I always feel like I have to be the responsible person at the pod, and I'm like, no one's gonna get rid of it. I have to get rid of it. And then I get rid of it, and then I lose very soon after. I don't think I've ever seen this thing on live deck building, though. Man, damn, I hate it. I hate that it's $4 and super accessible to people. God damn. I should calm down. It's a piece of cardboard. I'm not gonna lie, though. I have lost multiple games because I felt the need to be responsible and pay for that effect. Oh, Fatal Slur, good to see you. You say a Fumulus. Fumulus. Fumulus is rad. Fumulus is new. This thing was printed in the Foundation's Jumpstart packs. It's a mono-black 4-drop vampire insect with flying and death touch. Whenever a player sacrifices a non-token creature, we make ourselves a little black flying insect, and whenever an insect, leech, slug, or worm you control attacks. Defending player loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. 10 out of 10 would recommend. So Fumulus is a black insect that makes insects, and Zera is also an insect that makes insects. Fumulus gives us extra triggers when our insects attack. 10 out of 10. I love it. Also relevant, we haven't seen a lot of life gain among the cards so far. Notable among Fumulus is he gains us life. He gives our creatures triggers that gain us life. I like that quite a bit. I like him a lot. He's $5, and he's a lot more expensive than I thought he would be, honestly. These Jumpstart Foundation packs, I guess not a lot of them have been printed or opened, but a lot of the cards in that set are still pricey as hell, y'all. Maskwood Nexus. Justin H says a Maskwood Nexus. Hey everybody, if you want to vote on tomorrow's deck tech, please head on over to the Discord server in the link tree. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'm BGM. Let's keep going. We got a Maskwood Nexus here, and this card gets suggested almost every night I stream. It's a $4 $4 colorless artifact for 4 mana, and creatures you control are every creature type. The same is true for creatures in your deck and in your graveyard. And yeah, you can also activate it and you can make yourself a changeling. The thing about the 2/2 changeling is it is every creature type too. So Maskwood Nexus is a way to break creature restrictions. in a really spicy way. A lot of times you'll see a Maskwood Nexus, and they'll just be slivers sprinkled into a deck to be silly. This thing's cool, though. Maskwood Nexus enables a lot of combos. Because it says creatures you control. Yeah, but only for your side. I think there's like a Mycosynth Lattice that does something similar, but it does it to everybody. I think Mycosynth Lattice might, in fact, be the one that traumatized me. But the guy kept saying he was impregnating his creatures when he put egg counter... Kent Nasty, thank you very much for that, Kent Nasty. Matthew Santolari says a Banner of Kinship. Banner of Kinship is cool. Banner of Kinship is like a 5-mana colorless artifact from Bloomburrow. It's $10. It's getting pricier a little bit at a time. It's climbing up there. It's an artifact, and as it enters, you choose a creature type. I imagine in Zera, we're going to pick Insect. We're a lot more tribal focused than I thought we would be. I didn't imagine we had so much Insect support. Yeah, so we choose a creature type. We're going to pick Insect today for Zera. So we're going to pick Insect. And you put a fellowship counter on it for each creature you control of the chosen type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1 for each counter on this artifact. Very silly. This thing's very cool. It's kind of like an overrun effect. It creates a board-wide anthem for your creatures, making them big. Zera is an insect that makes insects, so we'll likely have like 2 or 3 insects by the time we pop this thing off. Thank you very much for the follow, TryXZ. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's very cool. It's a favorite among Bloomburrow cards. Whenever we do any kind of tribal adjacent deck on live deck building, we always see a Banner of Kinship. It's a well-liked card. It's new. It's very cute. It's got the mice kind of rallying around this little like cocktail umbrella looking thing. It's a vibe. It's very cool. I can't believe no one suggested a Roaming Throne yet. Decimate. A Decimate. Decimate's interesting, and I like talking about Decimate. Decimate feels very powerful and very fair, and we'll talk about it. It's a Gruul 4-mana sorcery, and this thing is a hardcore piece of removal. And you destroy target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target land. You cannot have invalid targets for this thing. You need to have one of each to resolve this spell. If you don't have a target for each type, you cannot resolve Decimate, unfortunately. It's restrictive, but if you, like, cast this thing full on one opponent, it's gonna feel like a mini board wipe for 4 mana in Gruul colors. It's really good. It got printed a bunch. It looks like this version in particular was already put into the Bloomburrow Precon. I think that was the Make Trash Do Smash Raccoon Precon. We did that live a few weeks ago. It was fun. If you want to see what people suggested for that one, that's also on the Moxfield page. In the link tree. Pain's Reward. Uh-oh. Kept Evergreen. Kept Evergreen. What are you about to do? Pain's Reward is a 3-mana mono black sorcery for $10. Well, it's like $8.50. I round up. You bid any amount of life in turn order. Each player may top the high bid. The bidding ends if the high bid stands. The high bidder loses life equal to the highest bid and draws 4 cards. I like it. I don't hate it. You know, I don't hate it. If you bid any amount of life in turn order until the player matches the high build. Ends, the high bid stands, the high bidder loses life. You know what? If you really want to buy if you really want card draw, or if you really want to trick your opponents into spending a bunch of life, this could be very silly. I feel like you could really manipulate your friends with this card in a very fun and exciting way. Because you could just okay, if I'm going to cast this card for myself, if I were to play this card, I would not bid less than 6 or 7 life. I think I would have a minimum bid of 6 life. No, that feels like a lot. Maybe 5. No, I'd do 6. I want to do 6 because you could really hurt someone. Because if someone wants to do 7, I feel like that's where things get spicy. I like it. It's very silly. And can you imagine if people keep bidding in the early game and they really want those 4 cards? How silly is that? I like that. I like that a lot, actually. I kind of wish it was cheaper. Because, like, people can just straight up jack your cards. They can just pay more life than you. And also, if you're in a life gain matchup, this thing probably isn't going to be very effective. Are you looking to put the sting counter on silly opponent's creature or your own as well? Slob the Builder, cute username. I am biggergayer magic. I do silly little live deck building here on TikTok and also Twitch and YouTube. Thank you for hanging out with me. If you see your card over here, it'll be put into a Moxfield deck list, and I want to talk about the cards that you guys want to talk about. So I want to know what you would put in Zero. If you would find it really spicy and interesting to plop Zero's counters on your opponent's creatures and then find ways to kill them, tell me about it. What card would you use? Put it in the comments. If you see it over here, it'll be put into a Moxfield deck list. Thanks for hanging out with me. This is Path of Ancestry, and we've seen a lot more insect support this deck than I thought we would. Turns out Insect is a pretty supported creature type in Magic already. We even got a spicy little black creature that was printed in Foundation's Jumpstart that's really good. That's about $5. It's called Fumulus, who can even do little bits of life gain for us. This Path of Ancestry enters the battlefield tapped, but it can tap for any of our colors. That's relevant. We are in 3 colors. We could use a little bit of fixing in our lands. And this thing taps. You had 1 mana color. And if that mana was spent to cast an Insect or an Assassin, we can scry 1 off this thing's mana production ability. It's cool. It's rad. It gets put in almost every precon. It's cool. I like it. Pain's Reward. Did we do Pain's Reward? I think we did Pain's Reward. That was the sorcery. Okay. Doubling Season. Matten over on Twitch. Thank you very much, Matten, for the suggestion. You say a Doubling Season. Doubling Season is rad. It's a 5 mana, mono green, $33, even though it was just reprinted in Foundation's enchantment. It says that if you would put counters on things, or if you would create tokens, you make double counters and you slam double tokens. This thing says that your deck pops off twice as hard, usually. This thing's great. Almost so many. It's hard to find a deck running the color green that doesn't want this. This card's amazing. This thing was just reprinted and it's already $33. This card stays expensive. It's great. It's great, but like, I don't think it's worth $33 great, to tell you the truth. It's very cool, but in a Zero deck specifically, it'll slam down multiple egg counters, which is a little bit of a non-bow because we don't get rewards for slamming multiple egg counters. But we will make multiple tokens when we get that thing to die, so that's interesting. And if we care about counters on other cards, it will double the counters on them, which is relevant. Frost Ace says a Breath of Fury would go well. Let's talk about a Breath of Fury. Breath of Fury is a 4 mana mono red aura enchantment for $15. Ooh, $15 might be spicy. And you enchant a creature you control. When an enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, you sacrifice it and attach Breath of Fury to a creature you control. If you do, you untap all creatures, you can get an additional combat phase. I like it a lot, actually. This thing is wonderful in Zero. Let's walk through it quick. So, we attack with Zero. Zero puts a counter out. Maybe we have... Okay, so we cast the enchantment, right? We put it on a creature we don't care about. Cast enchantment, target it with the enchant creature. We enchant a creature we don't care about because we're going to dispose of it with this thing's trigger. And then we're going to slam it on a different creature after we resolve Zero to put the counter on the thing that this thing is going to get put onto. I feel like I didn't say that very well. Okay, so we attack with something we don't care about with this thing attached to it. And Zero. Don't put this on Zero because we want Zero to keep going. And this can kind of create a little bit of a combo, right? Well, it doesn't give Zero's tokens haste. I don't know. I feel like we could combo out with it if we really wanted to. We could break it. This thing is $14. I feel like it's a great card, y'all. They're real good. Coilor, the Windbolt, says a Dragon Lair Spider. Dragon Lair Spider. Dragon Lair Spider. It sounds like a Gruul card. Yeah, this thing is metal as hell, y'all. It's a 6 mana Gruul Spider. It's got 2 red pips, 2 green pips, 5/6 Reacher. It's a spider. And whenever an opponent casts a spell, you create a 1/1 green insect creature token, 10 out of 10. I love it. This thing's amazing. If this thing was legendary, we should be playing this thing. I love this card. This card is $2. I don't recognize the set symbol. I love it, though. We're in a multiplayer format, right? So we're going to be passing turns. People are going to start multi-spelling by the time that we got 6 mana on the battlefield. Then we're going to make a bunch of 1/1s in a relevant creature type for 0. This words, and it's hard to read. It's 7 mana. It's mono red. And it says that... Oh, God. I got to get close. Okay. Each player hides... Each player hides at least one object, then all players reveal simultaneously each play. You know what, Kept Evergreen? I can't do this for you. I've done this for you enough. I am simply... We're gonna move on from your nonsense. It's banned? Unfortunately... Okay, so I'm not gonna explain the card. I'm not even gonna finish reading the card because my brain started to hurt. I don't think you should read the card either. Kept Evergreen, I appreciate you immensely for hanging out with me, but you please stop doing this to me. Yeah, it's great. Unfortunately, I can tell you that it is not banned. You can play it legally in Commander. Excuse me, if the card was banned, it wouldn't show up on our search for our Commander deck. So it's playable, but I don't think you should play it, to be perfectly honest. It's insane. I used it on Halloween because the shop let me. Nesting Grounds. Nesting Grounds. Nesting Grounds is wonderful. Nesting Grounds is the opposite of Goblin Game. It's a colorless land, it enters untapped, and it taps for colorless. And we can pay 1 mana, and we can move counters around. And that's super useful for our commander Zira, because Zira puts counters on things when she attacks. This thing, for 1 mana, we can tap it, and move the egg counters around. It's a great card, y'all. I like it a lot. Also, 40 cents. Very budget-friendly. Coat of Arm! Okay. You know what, Kept Evergreen? I was kind of mean to you. Thank you very much for sticking around. I feel a little bad. It hurts. I have to get like really close to the screen just to read it. I'm sorry, Kept Evergreen. It's 5 mana. It's Coat of Arms. It's $24 for this version. It also got a very fancy art treatment in the Caverns of Ixalan expansion. And this thing says that each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature that shares a creature type with it. And notable about our friend Coat of Arms over here is that it counts across the board. So if you have multiple people playing the same creature types, or if you find a way to make all creatures on the board the same type, this thing makes the game very complicated. I really like this card. I run it in a few tribal decks. I run it in my Locust God, which is coincidentally also insect tokens. I like it. It's good. It's great. It is a little bit fair and balanced and a double-edged sword in a game of Commander, because if your opponents also have a ton of creatures of the same type, this thing buffs their creatures too. And that feels really fair to me. I run this card. I run this card in multiple decks. I like it a lot. It feels fair, and sometimes it doesn't function because other people just have more creatures or they're just doing tribal better than me that day. And for that reason, it feels fair, because it doesn't always work, and it doesn't always end the game. Swarmweaver would be hot in this, says a Scott Felton. Thank you, Scott, for the Swarmweaver. So we've seen Swarmweaver a few times. Swarmweaver's fun. He's a 4-mana artifact scarecrow Golgari creature from Duskmourn. He's a 2/3. He's 50 cents, and he says that when he enters the battlefield, we make 2 little insect creature tokens, and as long as there are 4 or more card types in our graveyard, that means card types are things like sorceries, instants, enchantments, creatures, things of that nature. If we got 4 different those in our graveyard, our insects get +1/+1 and have Death Touch, which is really cool. Relevant about this creature, we did see that spider that really excited me for 6 mana in Gruul colors. This thing also cares about spiders, which is interesting. I like it. It's great. It makes our creatures more significant. It doubles their damage output because Zira just makes 1/1s. It buffs Zira a little bit too because Zira herself is an insect. I like this card a lot. It's also a budget pick at 50 cents. Great suggestion. Alright. Scoot Swarm! Oh my gosh, how have we not seen Scoot Swarm? This deck is a lot more tribal supported than I thought it would be. I didn't realize how tribal the insect... I didn't realize how supported the tribal insect type was until y'all guys started suggesting me so many bangers for the insect tribe. This thing is Scoot Swarm. It's a 3-mana green creature, and this thing can crash MTG Arena if you hit over 240 tokens. Actually, I'm pretty sure the 240 token limit is for your boy right here. This thing says that whenever a land enters the battlefield, you make yourself a little 1/1 insect, but if you got 5 or more lands, you make a copy of Scoot Swarm, and if you keep hitting land drops with the Scoot on the battlefield, you Fibonacci spiral out in Scoot Bugs, and you run out of dice. This card says if you hit enough land triggers, you run out of dice. It's crazy. It wins games. It creates... in a late game, if you have a way to get land drops on top of this on the turn you cast it, it's just a board in a box on a 3-drop. It's great. It's $4. It's seen a few reprints, and I hope they keep reprinting it. Because also, like, the first few times you pop out a Scoot Swarm, and you start doubling it, and you start doubling it again, it's a really, really fun experience. It's a very cool piece of, like, game design in that way, but it is an instant threat. One Scoot Swarm is too many. You need to have no Scoot Swarms before you're safe. This thing is crazy. Spicy Tortilla says a Belladros Withered Bloom. Bella... Hey everybody, I'm BGM. I'm a video editor and MTG content creator across all platforms, primarily TikTok. And on lives, we do community deck building. If you want to suggest a card for our Zero the Golden Sting deck, please put it in the comments. If you see it over here, it'll be put into a Moxfield deck list, and y'all can check that out via the link tree. If you want to vote on what commander we do tomorrow night, you can check out the link tree for the Discord server. This is Belladros Witherbloom. He's a 7-mana Golgari 4/4 Elder Dragon from Strixhaven, and he is a flyer, and he says at the beginning of each of your upkeeps, you create a black and green pest creature token with a death trigger that you gain 1 life. And you can also, at instant speed, pay 10 life, untap all lands you control, activate only once each turn. This thing's very spicy. This thing is a life gain deck because you really want to capitalize on that pay 10 life thing. He does make tokens. The tokens are cool. The tokens want to die anyway. So if we can put the egg counters on the pest tokens, that would be the best of both worlds. We can get a little bit of life gain when the pest dies, and then we'll crack a card, and we'll also get a little insect when our little pest dies. Ooh, a bee landed on my head. Okay, cool. All right. That's Belladros Withered Bloom. He's rad. He's also $6. That's not a lot. That feels fine. Okay. Rad. Rad. Thank you, Spicy Tortilla, for the suggestion. Alright, Ethan Ray Jones says a Phyrexian Altar. Phyrexian Altar. Phyrexian Altar is a 3-mana colorless artifact for $43. This thing's crazy. Recommended proxy. And it's, you sacrifice a creature at instant speed, and you get a mana of any color. This thing's great. It is the best altar. It enables a lot of infinite combos if you're that kind of person. It's great. It's one of the best sack outlets in the game. You're going to see it in a lot of commander decks. A lot of commander decks that want things to die really want this card, and this simply is the best version of this effect, which is why it's like $43. It's even seen a few reprints, and it's still $43. It's great. But I gotta tell you guys, I gotta tell you what. I have a real copy of this, and I bought a single. I don't think I spent $43, but I probably spent like 30. And I took it out of decks. Because like in this, when you have a Phyrexian Altar and you're not going infinite, you need an insane amount of token. Well, not insane. You need like 10 disposable tokens to really capitalize on this thing. The value of this thing is that you can activate it at instant speed and then you can interact on your opponent's turns. It's really cool. I like it, but like buy a proxy and test it out before you buy it, is what I would suggest. Artmaster907 says a Drivnod. I love Drivnod. I love Drivnod, and they did it in, I forget what card it is in MH3. They did a Drivnod art on, like, a sorcery. It was like a kill spell, and it was him eating something as, like, a giant thing. Drivnod is a 5-mana Phyrexian Horror, and he is an 8/3. And if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control, that ability triggers an additional time. That is wonderful, because Zira says that when that creature dies, if it has an egg counter on it, draw a card and create yourself a little creature token. This thing will double up our triggers. It's a little Death Harmonicon thing. It doubles up our death triggers. It's also relevant in the way that it can kind of protect itself sometimes. We can pay 2 black or 4 life in Phyrexian mana. We can exile 3 cards from our graveyard 3 creature cards from our graveyard, excuse me. And we can slam an indestructible counter on Drivnod. If he has indestructible, he can still be exiled, but he probably can't be killed. Unless we're forced to sacrifice him. It's great. He has built-in protection, kind of. You do have to pay for it. But it's great. He'll double up our triggers. We'll draw multiple cards. We'll make multiple guys. It'll be a good time. We're going to skip this song. That song doesn't have enough energy. We need something to pop. Let's try that again. Have you done the path of the Ozolith and put eggs on your own creatures? Yes, Scott Felton. So we talked about the Ozolith already, but everybody loves the Ozolith. The Ozolith is a 1-mana spell, and it says if that something would leave the battlefield and it has counters on it, we have to put the counters on the Ozolith. Thank you very much for the follow, S's. 5s. Excuse me. Not S's, 5s. Thank you very much for the follow. This thing gets the counters if the thing leaves the battlefield or it dies. And at the beginning of combat any turn, you can take the counters on the Ozolith and you can put it at places. You can put it places where you want things to die because we're going to have egg counters. And when our things with egg counters die, we can slam them on the Ozolith and then we can go to combat, we can put them somewhere else and hope they die again. It would be very cool. It would get us... It's kind of like keeping a trigger of placing an egg counter because we keep the egg counter and we can keep reusing the egg counter. It could be... I like it a lot. It's very, very synergistic. Definitely well within proxy territory for me at 35 bucks. But you know what? The Ozolith is always going to be expensive. I just wish they would reprint it once or twice. What about Drivnod? Yeah, we just talked about Zulaport. Ethan says Zulaport. I love Zulaport Cutthroat. Zulaport Cutthroat is amazing, and you should play him. Uh-oh. Zulaport Cutthroat is a mono black. 2 mana. What the hell? Can I not spell Zulaport? I put Zuluport instead of Zulaport. Alright. Zulaport Cutthroat is a 2 mana black human rogue LI 1/1, and whenever this thing or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life, we gain 1 life. This is what's known as an Aristocrats piece. Aristocrats is a deck style where you want to sacrifice your own creatures for value. We're in an Aristocrats deck style, kind of. Because when we place egg counters with our commander, we want those things to die. And if we can get them to die while Zulaport Cutthroat's on the battlefield, we're going to gain a little bit of life, do a little bit of damage to our opponents, and draw a card, and make ourselves a bug. Then we can let her kill to get more triggers. It'll be a good time. I like it a lot. Also, Zulaport Cutthroat is one of the older Aristocrats pieces, and it's a lot of Aristocrats pieces have been power crept out in newer formats. And Zulaport Cutthroat has been around for a long time. I want to say almost 10 years. And it's still great. It's still one of the best ones in the Aristocrat style. Ant Queen. I like Ant Queen. So Fungi over on Twitch, thank you very much, says Ant Queen, because it makes tokens that'll be used, more protection for creatures. Okay. So Ant Queen is a 5 mana insect, 70-cent 5/5, and it's got an activated ability where we can pay 2 mana. We can make an insect. Insect is a relevant creature type. We have a lot more tribal synergies than I thought we would. This thing is an insect that makes insects. 10 out of 10. It's also a relevant body. Almost all the bodies we've seen on our creatures are tiny, or they make a bunch of tiny bodies. This thing's kind of chunky. It's got 5 power, 5 toughness. I like it. It also has an activated ability. He can make guys. He is guy, but he big guy. At least big relative to an insect deck. He's cool. Dream Demon over on Twitch says that an Amzu swarms hunger. Have we seen Amzu? No, we haven't seen Amzu today. Amzu? Did you guys hear my voice crack? Someone please clip that on Twitch. I don't know how Twitch works super especially well. I saw that you guys clipped my voice cracking that other time. I think it would be super silly if we had a bunch of clips of it. Thank you guys for doing that then. Alright, this thing is a 5 mana Golgari Insect Shaman, 3/3, Flying Menace. Other insects you control have Menace. And whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, you may create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token, and then put a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the greatest mana value among those cards. Do this only once each turn. Okay, cool. So this thing is he's a chunky insect. He's a 3/3 flyer, Flying Menace. Our commander's a 3/3, just Flying Haste. He's $16. Wow, this thing is 16 bucks. This thing was printed in the Clue expansion, and it's $16. Why is this thing 16 bucks? What the hell? Other insects you control have menace. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard. See, this thing doesn't even get its own triggers. You have to find other ways to get this thing to trigger. At least the creatures it makes are big. Well, the creatures it makes are big and menacey. So if we had a way to keep exiling stuff from graveyards, like if we had a Deathrite Shaman, that little hybrid 1-mana creature, we could keep exiling things, we can keep getting triggers for this thing. I think we need a little bit more of graveyard hate to really, like, get this thing to trigger. Or we need to, it needs to fill its own graveyard and then exile its own graveyard, or recur stuff out of its own graveyard. This thing, I feel like, needs more support than we can give it. Because Zera's a little bit all over the place. We have a little bit of Insect Tribal. We have some Voltron because she herself has to attack. We got some counter synergies and some ways to move counters around. This thing needs to fill a graveyard, or have their opponents fill their graveyard, and it also needs ways to get stuff out of graveyards. But it's cool. It's 16 bucks. It has to be good, right? Right, chat? It has to be good. It's 16 bucks. I don't know. I might be missing something. Silver Death. Hey, Silver Death says a Prowling Geistcatcher. Prowling Geistcatcher. Prowling Geistcatcher is not a card I'm familiar with. I imagine it's from Innistrad. I was gonna say, okay, we got a Prowling Geistcatcher. It's a 60-cent 2/4 black human rogue with whenever you sacrifice another creature, exile it. If that creature was a token, you slam a +1/+1 counter on Howling Geistcatcher. When Prowling Geistcatcher leaves the battlefield, return each card with it to the battlefield under your control. Okay! Alright, I like this a lot, actually. So this thing is really good, actually. It was put in a precon. It's 60 cents. It wants to attack, like our commander. It's also a 4-drop that wants to attack. It gets counters when we sacrifice tokens, and when we sacrifice real things, we get to exile them. And then when this thing leaves the battlefield, we return each card exiled with it. This thing's great. So if we choose to slam our egg counters on real permanents, as in non-token permanents, when we sacrifice them for the value of Zera drawing that card and making that little token, it can get exiled under this thing, and then we can get it back for free when we decide to put Zera's counter on him, and then we sacrifice him, and then we get all our things back. I like that a lot. I like that it's kind of like a synergy that requires multiple turns of preparation and planning to get your trigger to pop off really good. It feels fair because your opponents can see it coming, but it's a powerful effect, especially if you have lots of like non-token creatures in your deck that want to die anyway. This thing can function a little bit like a Luminous Broodmoth if it was like a third as good. I like it a lot. Thank you very much for the follow, Jason. I appreciate it. I'm biggergayer Magic. I'm a video editor and streamer. I stream and do MTG content all over the place. And on lives, we do live deck building. Our commander tonight is Zera, suggested by our Patreon Articulate or Particulate. If you would like to vote on live deck building, there's a Discord. It's all free, the Discord. And you guys can vote on tomorrow's commander, and then we can talk about it during tomorrow's stream. This is Grave Pact, and this card makes me upset. It's a 4-mana mono black card, and this version's $21, even though the art be vibing. Whenever a creature you control is put into a graveyard from play, each other player sacrifices a creature. So this card is great. This card is $20. It's a great card. It will help you win games. It'll go super ham and an aristocrat strategy like Zera, who places counters on things and then wants those things to die for the triggers. However, something notable about Grave Pact is it functions like a continuous board wipe. And if you can find ways to sacrifice your creatures at instant speed, you can force your opponents to sacrifice creatures at instant speed, and their deck probably can't support that, and the game will probably turn into a very unfun experience for them. And for those reasons, I don't super like Grave Pact. But live deck building, we talk about whatever cards you guys want to suggest. So if you guys want to be super sweaty with your Grave Pact, you're welcome to bring it here. Thank you for your suggestion. Fatal Slur over on Twitch. Thank you for jumping on over to Twitch, Fatal Slur. If you'd like to support me and help me monetize my content on Twitch, if you could just jump over and follow, you can come back to TikTok. I know we're not super eager to leave TikTok at all. I'm not. Especially after what happened over the weekend. Here's Roaming Throne. I wasn't sure if we were going to see this one. I didn't realize how much tribal support we have in the insect creature type. But this thing is just great in almost every single deck, especially if your commander has triggers. This thing is often just worth putting in a deck to get your commander to trigger multiple times. It's $40, it's 4 mana, it's a colorless golem artifact 4/4 with a ward 2, meaning that you gotta pay 2 additional mana to target it. And as it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type. We're probably gonna pick Insect for Zera. And it is the creature type. And if a triggered ability of the creature type would trigger, you get an additional trigger. We've seen a lot of insects with a lot of triggers. This thing could go ham. I like it a lot. I feel like we are leaning towards a bug tribal kind of deck with Zera. Enraged Psycho says hello. Hello, Enraged Psycho. Do you have any commander cards you would put in Zera the Golden Sting? If you do, and I talk about them over here, you can check them out. If you guys want to see any of the cards we talked about, y'all can check out my Moxfield deck list, the one with today's date, the Zera deck, and you can see any of the cards we talked about. We're talking about Mass Hysteria. Mass Hysteria. Mass Hysteria is loading. Oh no, I sure hope we can load Mass Hysteria. Uh-oh, are we disconnecting? Okay, we got Mass Hysteria. It's mono red, it's an enchantment, it's $3, and it says that all creatures have haste. Fair, balanced. I love it. I love this card. This is fair. So, all creatures have haste, period, full stop. I love it. I love it in Commander specifically because the kind of Commander games I like to play are fun and casual and not super combo-y. And this thing is super fun for me because the most fun cards in Commander specifically, in my opinion, are cards that can sometimes help your opponents. Or they motivate your opponents to do certain things or play a certain way. And this thing, it just says that everything flat out has haste. And I like that. And maybe sometimes you can motivate your opponents to attack people other than you if you're like, hey, I gave your shit haste. Don't point it at me. Thank you very much for the follow, Heart Lemon. I appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for the 1,500 likes over on TikTok. It's good to be with y'all. And thank you, Nick, for the roses. Oh, right. Makes all things aggressive. If you're green, you gotta have Sylvan Library. Oh, yeah, Sylvan Library. Hell yeah, we gotta have Sylvan Library. Sylvan Library. That's like a mono green 2-drop. And it's... Wow, this version is $32. Yikes on trikes, y'all. Alright, we're not looking at this. Can we look at a different version? Oh no, please. Please, toggle all printings. Commander Arsenal. There we go. Alright, this one's legible to me. Alright, so it's a 2-mana mono green enchantment. At the beginning of your draw step, you may draw 2 additional cards. If you do, you choose 2 cards in your hand. Draw on this turn. For each of those cards, you pay 4 life, or put that card on top of your library. So this card isn't seen so much nowadays. This card's fallen a little bit out of fashion in Commander. It's Sylvan Library. I'm sorry, I had to pull up a different art, so it's not the right size. It's Sylvan Library. It's 2-drop mono green enchantment. How much is this version? Does it say? I don't know. It doesn't say. So this used to be really popular about 5 years ago. And the adage about playing Sylvan Library is that when you play Sylvan Library, you pay 8 life for your first draw. Period, full stop, no matter what, every time. For the first trigger. And then after that, you kind of care about your life total. Newer players playing with something like Sylvan Library, they likely won't take full advantage of it because they'll be afraid to use their life as a resource. Guys, don't be afraid to use your life as a resource. It's okay if you die, you can shuffle up and play a different game. This thing's really cool, and it does gain you a ton of... I'm sorry. It does force you to pay a bunch of life. But drawing cards and playing cards is how you win the game. Don't be afraid of Sylvan Library. It's expensive because it's good. Blink Sama says Pharma... Okay, I don't think I can pronounce that word. Blank Sama says the Pharmaceutian. The Pharmaceutian? I don't... No cards found for Pharma. Pha... RMA. I'm sorry, it's not coming up. Saw in Half. I love Saw in Half. Saw in Half is one of my favorite cards. Saw in Half is pricey. All right. Oh no! Please don't fuck up my overlay for the whole stream. God damn it. Okay. Fuck you, Sylvan Library. All right. So we're gonna go to Saw in Half. Saw in Half is a great card. Alright, it's 3 mana, it's mono black, it's an instant, and it got a reprint in the Blue Robe Recon. I love that. So Saw in Half was printed on Unfinity, and they put some Commander legal cards in the Unfinity set to motivate selling the Unfinity set. Saw in Half is rad. Saw in Half is usually $10 no matter where it's printed. And like, there's not a lot of cards that like are above $10 that I can like say are worth it. But the gameplay experience of resolving Saw in Half in a really clever way is sometimes worth $11. In my personal opinion, if you can afford it. I really enjoy Saw in Half. I don't... Like, if you're going to spend money on a single, Saw in Half is an instant that you have a good time with every time. It says you destroy target creature, but you make 2 versions that are each half the size of it. And if you cast this on a creature that wants to die, maybe because it has an end counter on it, you get your triggers here, you make 2 versions of it. If that creature itself that you're killing has a death trigger, you get that death trigger. If the creature that you're murdering has an enter the battlefield trigger, you get 2 enter the battlefield triggers because the tokens have the triggers. It's great. I really love it. I run it in my Atraxa ETB deck, and you get an instant speed, kill something, and make 2 copies of it, and have both of the ETBs trigger at the same time, and it really pops off. It's great. It's so good, y'all. And if your deck can recur creatures, you can kill them with this thing and put them back. It's great. And he'll have 2 little brothers. It's amazing. I really enjoy Saw in Half. It's one of my favorite cards of all time, period, full stop. If I had infinite money, I would run it in every deck, but it is pricey. But I do think it is worth buying a singular version of it. Or proxy it if you want to playtest it before you want to buy it. Silver Death says a Fumulus. Fumulus, we talked about Fumulus 3 times, but I'll talk about Fumulus a lot. So this is tonight's live is the first time I've ever seen this Fumulus. Fumulus is a 4-mana mono black creature printed in the Jumpstart Foundations pack a while ago, like a month or 2. And this thing is a little flying 2/2 Death Toucher. It's a vampire insect, and whenever a player sacrifices a non-token creature, we make ourselves a little 1/1 black insect creature token with flying. And whenever an insect, leech, slug, or worm you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. Fumulus is wonderful. He is an insect that makes insect. A lot like how our commander's an insect that makes insects. Fumulus also gives triggers to our insects that they do a little bit of damage on attack, and then we gain a little bit of life. We haven't seen a whole lot of life gain in this deck so far, and Fumulus can do that for us. I enjoy Fumulus. He's great. He's $5, and he was just printed. He's a new boy. Alaskan Love says Concordant Crossroads. Concordant Crossroads. Thank you, Alaskan Love, for hanging out with me over on Twitch. I appreciate it. Concordant Crossroads. Is Concordant Crossroads a singular word? I guess it's a singular word. No, it's not. Concordant Crossroads is a singular green mana. It says that creatures have haste. Period. Stop. Full stop. Creatures have haste. $23. Singular mono green enchantment. It's great. It's often seen in CDH decks. Yeah, it is the green version of Mass Hysteria. What about Nim Deathmantle? What about Nim Deathmantle? Nim Deathmantle, since that equipment card, you may pay 4. If you do, return that creature to the battlefield tapped and attach the Deathmantle to it. I like it a lot. You can keep just getting the creature back. That's great, actually. It is a little bit of a mana sick, so you do need a mana investment of 6 to get this thing to save your creature. You need 2 to cast it, you need 4 to equip it, and then you need the thing to die. I really like the way that it's kind of like... I feel like it'll fit really good mana curve-wise into a Zera deck. You gotta cast it for 2. We can cast it before Zera comes out. Zera herself has haste, so we're not going to do anything with the turn that Zera comes out. But after that, we can use the mana. We know we're going to have at least 4 mana, because we have already casted Zera. We can slam this thing on a creature, put a counter on it when Zera attacks. Great. Can we put a counter on Zera herself? It doesn't have to be another creature. Has to be another creature. If we could kill 0 multiple times for her triggers, that would have been really cool. I guess they balanced it by making sure you couldn't do that. V, thank you so much for the follow. I am BGM. I'm a video editor. I make silly little Magic the Gathering content all over the internet, primarily on TikTok. Really happy to be with you guys. If you guys want to vote on Live Deck Building's Commander tomorrow night, y'all can head into my Discord server under the Live Deck Building channel and y'all can vote. Our next suggestion is a Gigantic Freeze. Gigantic Freeze? Gigantic Freeze. Gigantic Freeze. That's not a card. I guess they're just saying that I'm having connection issues. I'm sorry. Yeah, Alaskan Love, I'm also having some connection issues. Yigra, Eater of All. So we talked about Yigra, but we'll do it again. I really like the Yigra. Yigra's rad. Why? Yigra, Eater of All. Yigra, Eater of All. Yigra, Eater of All is a 5-mana Golgari cat elemental, 6/6 with ward, sacrifice of food. And other creatures are food to Yigra, because it makes them artifact foods in addition to their other types. And whenever a food is put into a graveyard from anywhere, we get to slam 2 counters on Yigra. I really enjoy Yigra. I built Yigra. Yigra's pricey these days at nearly 20 bucks at $17.90 or $16.99. It's great. It's super fun. Yigra wants things to die. Our commander wants specific things to die. Yigra doesn't really care. But we can make those things die. We can get the triggers off of Zira, and we can also get the triggers off of Yigra. Could be really cool. Grist the Hunger Tithe. Yeah, Grist the Hunger Tithe. Alright, this thing's interesting. It's $1. It's a Planeswalker, and it can be your commander. It's 3 mana. It's in Golgari colors. And it's a Grist Planeswalker. Grist is a... You know, like Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas? This is what he looks like without his sack on. And as long as... After a glow up. And as long as Grist the Hunger Tithe isn't on the battlefield, it's a 1/1 insect creature in addition to its other types. So for those purposes, if it's in the graveyard, if it's in the deck, it's a 1/1 creature. And you can activate it, put a little green creature token, then mill a card. If an insect card was milled this way, you put a loyalty counter on Grist. You can -2, you may sacrifice a creature when you do destroy target creature or planeswalk. Alright, so I feel like this is the ability. This -2 is going to be the primary reason it's in the deck. It can kill the thing that we slam the egg counter on with Zira, and it'll give us a little bit of removal for our opponents. I like that a lot. The last ability is the ult. Guys, I'm going to be real with you. If you're a newer player, or if you're new to Magic the Gathering, you need to give up the dream right now. Your pod is not going to let you ult your planeswalkers. I don't want you to raise your hopes to be dashed. -5 loyalty. Each opponent loses life equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. It's great. This thing is a commander in and of itself, I think, right? Wait, is this the one that can be your commander? No, it's not the one that can be your commander. I am full of shit. Weird. Yigra does go hard in the squirrel deck, Zachary. Maha, oh my god, Maha would be insane. Maha is crazy. Maha is $13. Maha is mono black and is 5 mana. It's a 6/5 elemental bird. Flying, trample, ward, discard a card. Creatures your opponents control have base toughness 1. So, Maha, I've never played against a Maha commander deck, and I wouldn't want to tell you the truth. Playing against a Maha commander deck is like playing against a continuous board wipe. It's like Toxrill. It's awful. It's miserable to play against, I've heard. Because you fill a Maha commander deck with a ton of effects that just say you're... Oh wait, that's okay. If you fill it with effects that say your opponent's creatures get -1/-1, there's a bunch of like 2 mana instants in black that just say your opponent's creatures get -1/-1, and those are one-sided board wipes in a Maha deck. Maha already has 6 power. You can slam a few swords or some equipment on Maha, you smack them a few times, you keep wiping their boards with like one-sided board wipes. That's the game right there, guys. It would be great in this deck because we want things to die. Feels fair and balanced in this deck. If you get sat across a Maha, mono black Maha deck, don't, I guess, would be my advice. Unless you are like CDH and about that life. I particularly am not, though. Celestine Cave. Celestine Cave. Celest. Uh-oh. Did I not spell it right? Celestin space cave. I'm sorry, can I please get a spell check on Celestine Cave? What about a Goblin Bombardment? Goblin Bombardment feels fair. Goblin Bombardment. Goblin Bombardment is a 2-mana mono red enchantment. It's $5, and it says you can sacrifice a creature at instant speed and deal 1 damage to target creature or player. It's great. It's often a win con in little red token decks, like goblins in particular, hence Goblin Bombardment. It's great. If you guys we've built Kranko Mob Boss once or twice on the stream before. This thing is just a win con in a Kranko Mob Boss deck, because then they can just turn their creatures into direct damage. It's great. It's great. It's also instant speed sacrifice outlet, which is really great. I imagine that's going to be the prime spice in our 0 deck for our Goblin Bombardment, is that's going to be an instant speed sack outlet with a little bit of damage attached. Thank you, JK Collect, for the follow. I appreciate it. I'm biggergayer Magic. I'm a video editor. I do live deck building on lives, and if you want to help us pick our commander for tomorrow night, there's a Discord server. And y'all can pop into the Discord server. It's in the link tree. If you want to vote on what commander among the guilds we're doing tomorrow night. This is Death Reap Ritual. It is 4 mana. It is a it's 4 mana. It's a Golgari enchantment. And honestly, I love the art. This is it's giving. I don't think I can say cunty on live, but okay. It's cunty. Morbid. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, you may draw a card. This thing's great. It hangs out on the battlefield. It's in our creature types. I like the art a lot. And at the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, you may draw a card. Super relevant about the way that this card is worded. At the beginning of each end step. Your opponents all have end steps, and this one cares about each of them. So if things die on your opponent's turn, you get triggers off of this thing, and you get card draw. That's pretty amazing. I like that a lot. Good card. It was printed in the Duskmourn Precon. The Golgari Duskmourn Precon. Loyal Apprentice. Alaskan Love says a Loyal Apprentice. Loyal Apprentice. Loyal Apprentice. Oh, this version's from the Fallout precons. This thing's 80 cents. It's a hasty 2-1 for 2 mana and mono red, and it has Lieutenant, which means at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, you create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. That token gains haste until end of turn. I like it a lot. It makes us tokens, and we need to have disposable creatures so that Zira can get her triggers, because we want to put egg counters on disposable creatures, not the ones we want to stick around, and this one makes disposable creatures. And speaking of mana curve, it makes them on curve. Zira has haste, so this would be really great to have in our opening hand. We could cast this thing on turn 2 or 3, our Loyal Apprentice, and then when on turn 4 or 3, if we ramp, we can cast Zira. And because Zira has haste and this thing's already on the battlefield, this thing will trigger before Zira does, because this thing triggers at the beginning of combat and Zira triggers on attack. So once this thing triggers, we have our Thopter. We could use Zira's trigger when she attacks with haste, put the counter on the Thopter, and then if we have a sacrifice outlet, we sacrifice the Thopter, we drew a card, we made a bug, and we didn't even lose a flyer because Zira's tokens fly. This thing's amazing. Great suggestion. Thank you. Alaskan Love. Excellent suggestion. If you guys want to see any of the cards we talk about, there's a Mox Field. It's in the link tree. Dated deck list. Dragon's Lair. Dragon Lair Spider. Dragon Lair Spider's rad. Dragon Lair Spider might be my favorite card that I learned existed tonight. Dragon Lair Spider is super fun, and it feels super duper fun in Commander, because this 6-drop Gruul Spider says that whenever an opponent casts a spell, you make yourself a little green insect creature token. And in Zira, because Zira is a bug that makes bugs, Spider make bug, but Spider make bug on opponent's turn. So bugs, insects, relevant creature type. It's a thing that makes relevant tokens in our creature type. It's very cool. It's also $2. Also, the art is metal as hell. I kind of like the art. I'm glad it's not like a super realistic spider. Ethan says, if you're going to use Goblin Bombardment, you should include Impact Tremors or Witty Roastmaster, or both. Impact Tremors is one of my favorite red cards. Impact Tremors, I was first introduced to. I had a Locust God deck, and the Locust God makes a ton of bugs as well, coincidentally. And Impact Tremors is a 2-mana mono red enchantment that says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to deal 1 damage to each of your opponents. It's great. Impact Tremors is a game-winning effect if you can crap out a ton of tokens. Impact Tremors is also an effect that has been stapled to quite a few different things, like the Witty Roastmaster. Witty Roastmaster, I'm pretty sure, is just a 3-mana mono-red creature with Impact Tremors stapled onto it. It's a common, and it's $1.50, because whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you deal 1 damage to each opponent. That's Impact Tremors on a creature. There's a red Impact Tremors from MH3 that cares about artifacts, I think. There's a few of them. There's a lizard that was printed in Bloomborough, I think, has Impact Tremors on it. Impact Tremors is a great effect. Golgari Germination, suggested by Frostace. Golgari Germination. Golgari Germination. Okay, Golgari Germination. We got ourselves a little enchantment. It's a 3-mana Golgari enchantment that says whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you make a 1/1 sapling creature token. This thing's cool. So we want our stuff to die. We want them to die once Zera makes them pregnant, and that's the only time during this live I am going to say that joke. Yeah, this thing's great. It cares about when stuff dies, and so do we with Zera. I like it a lot. It does... I would like it better if it made an insect, but, like, I'm not going to be super choosy. It does make a sapling. It does replace the creature that dies, but the creature's going to get replaced anyway if it had an egg counter, because it's going to make a little 1/1 boy. Little 1/1 bug. Living Hive. Living Hive, suggested by Dream Demon over on Twitch. Thanks for hanging out with me on Twitch, Dream Demon. If you TikTok homies want to help me monetize my content, if you could pop over to Twitch, maybe hit follow, maybe head on back over to TikTok. I know we're not super eager to leave it after the weekend. Living Hive is a 8-mana mono green elemental 6/6 with trample. And when this thing deals combat damage to a player, you put that many green insect creature tokens into play. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. We have not seen a lot of large, big spells in Zera at all. Zera herself is a 4-drop. And we've seen things around 5 or 6, but I don't think we've seen 8. But this thing's amazing. This thing itself is not a bug, but it's a trample-y thing. And then when this thing deals combat damage to a player, you put that many green insects into play. We have a ton of insect tribal synergies. I didn't think we would. I thought this was going to be like more like a Voltron aristocrat style, but insects themselves had to support that already. This thing's amazing. It makes bugs. We have bug that make bug. Bug, not bug, make bug. Very cool. Ethan Ray, your Locust God deck is your favorite? That's so... The Locust God, I can't pull it up because it's outside of our color identity. Perforos, though. Yeah, Perforos is Impact Tremors on steroids. Yeah, the Locust God is the first commander deck that I built myself that won a game ever. I still have... Do I have my... I have my Locust God. It's actually up there on the wall. Actually, let me show you. It's funny you mention it. Yeah, so this is my oldest deck. It's the Locust God. It's red and blue. I opened the fancy version in a pack. This is my Locust God. He's very cool. And he's the first deck I ever won a game with. I have a Consecrated Sphinx. That's one of my best friends from another life gave to me. And I have it in here. And it's also a Masterpiece version. I don't play it super often because, you know, it's really good. Because it has a Perforos in it, and it has a ton of Impact Tremor-like effects. And Impact Tremor-like effects really just, like, make a Locust God deck pop off. And on top of the Impact Tremor effects in a Locust God deck, the insects the Locust God make have haste. But anyway, we're talking about Perforos. Perforos is a 4-mana, mono-red, legendary enchantment creature god. And this thing's indestructible, and it's not a creature unless your devotion to red is more than 5. Devotion means that in the casting costs of your spells on your permanents, you want 5 red pips. Pips are the mana symbols. That's what devotion means. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Perforos deals 2 damage to each opponent. It's Impact Tremors on steroids. It's twice the amount of damage as a regular Impact Tremors. You can also pay 3 mana and creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. You can also just make them big with Perforos if you have a ton of mana that you want to pump into Perforos. It's great. It's great. I've lost to Perforos so many times. Perforos is $30. Perforos be staying expensive. Recommend a proxy. Alaskan Love says a Skull Clamp. Skull Clamp is rad. Skull Clamp is a 1-mana artifact, and it's probably the best piece of card draw we have in the whole deck, even with our commander having card draw on it. Skull Clamp is a 1-mana artifact, and it's an equipment, and we can pay 1 mana, and we can give a creature +1, -1. So we kill our 1/1s with our Skull Clamp. When we kill them with Skull Clamp, we draw 2 cards. If they had an egg counter placed on there by our commander, we draw a card off this, we make a guy, and we draw 2 cards off Skull Clamp. If we primarily are working with 1/1 insect creature tokens, all the insects we saw that made insect creature tokens, except for one that was from the Clue set for some reason, they all make 1/1 insects. We can all sacrifice those to the Skull Clamp. The Skull Clamp is a great card. It's a great piece of card draw. It's $11, and I hate to say it, like, play proxies, obviously, but like Skull Clamp might be worth $10 in my opinion. Swarmyard Massacre. Swarmyard Massacre. Swarmyard Massacre. The Swarmyard Massacre is a 5-mana mono-black sorcery. This looks like it's from the Bloomburrow set, and it's $8. And it says you create 2 green squirrel 1/1 creature tokens that then each creature that isn't an insect, rat, spider, or squirrel gets -1/-1 until end of turn. For each creature you control that is an insect, rat, squirrel, or spider. 10 out of 10, this is a one-sided board wipe. It's $8. It was printed in the pre-con. They gave an alternate art version, and I think in the collector packs. This card's great. This is a relevant tribal board wipe for those 4 creature types. It's probably why it's $8. It's great. It's probably the best board wipe we could run, in my opinion. We are going to have a bunch of bugs, because again, Commander Bug, Commander Make Bug. This thing's great. It also makes 2 squirrels, so it's at least going to do -2/-2, even if you're just doing the squirrels. This is great. I like it a lot. It's a one-sided board wipe. It might not be able to kill the biggest thing on the battlefield. Like, maybe if there's an Eldrazi Titan that's like a 13/13 or like a 10/10, it probably will survive this, unless you already have a massive advantage in the game. If you're already winning and you cast this thing, you're probably just going to win. Bear Umbra. Bear Umbra is a cool suggestion over on Twitch. Bear Umbra, originally printed in the Tuvasa precon. I also have that on a shelf, but I'm not going to take that one down. It's 4 mana. It's a mono green $8 enchantment aura, and it says that whenever the enchanted creature attacks, you untap all the lands you control. It also has totem armor, meaning that you have to kill the creature twice. It's great. It's $8. This thing was printed in the enchantment precon. It's been printed in precon since. It's a great card. I run it. It's wonderful. In a way, it's kind of like a mana doubler. If all your mana is in your lands, this thing just straight up is a mana doubler. It's a great card. Thank you for the suggestion. Scatter! Good to see you too, Scatter. It has been a little while. Scatter, a longtime friend of the channel. Scatter was with me before all the fancy green screen effects. Scatter was with me when I was trash. So is Frostace, to tell you the truth. Frostace says a brood of cockroaches. Cockroaches. We're going to take a few more suggestions and call it a night. We've been going for an hour and 45. Brood of cock... Oh, God, it's old. Oh, God, it's from Visions. Frostace, what the hell? Okay, Frostace. It's 2 mana. It's an insect. It's a bug. If a brood of cockroaches is put into your graveyard from play, pay 1 life, and return it to your hand at the end of turn. That feels fair. He just comes back. This is great, actually. He is a bug. We have found ourselves in an insect tribal deck with our friend Zera here. This thing is a bug, and it wants to be sacrificed because we can pay 1 life, and we can put it back in our hand, and when it dies with an egg counter, it makes a bug off Zera's trigger, and we draw a card. It's great, actually. It's so synergistic. It's a low drop creature, which means that we can have it on the battlefield before Zera. And because Zera has haste, if this thing's hanging out on the battlefield, when Zera comes out, we can attack with Zera, put the counter on it, and then find a way to kill it. Maybe we have a sack outlet to put it in. My only con for this whole card is the whole art situation. But other than that, great. Super synergistic in our Zera deck. We're going to do 4 more, I think. It is a very fair little bug, Frost Ace, and it's very utilitarian, too. Yeah, so Ethan, we saw Skull Clamp only a few cards ago. So we're not going to do Skull Clamp as one of our last suggestions. What else we got? The Swarm Weaver. Yeah, we haven't seen Swarm Weaver in like an hour. Swarm Weaver's rad. It's a 4-mana Golgari artifact legendary creature Scarecrow from the Duskmourn expansion. He himself is 50 cents. He's a 2/3. And when he enters the battlefield, you create 2 1/1 black and green insect creature tokens. And Delirium. Delirium means that if you got 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard, card types are things like instant, sorcery, enchantment, creature, artifact, planeswalker, and a ton of things I'm going to skip. Means that you get this thing to go off. And if you have Delirium, your bugs get +1/+1 and have Death Touch. Death Touch is a super relevant keyword that really deters your opponents from blocking your creatures. This thing's rad. It's less than $1. It cares about bugs. It does kind of want you to fill your graveyard. But we can definitely do that because we're going to be sacrificing creatures. We can get a creature in there real easily for Delirium. The other types might be hard. Alright, we're going to do 3 more. What about Insidious Roots? Insidious Roots. Oh, this thing's beautiful. Okay, Insidious Roots is a 2-mana Golgari enchantment for $3. It says that creatures you control can tap for 1 mana of any color. And whenever 1 or more token cards leave your graveyard, 1 or more creature cards leave your graveyard, create a 0/1 green plant creature token and then put a +1/+1 counter on each plant you control. I love this thing. What is this thing? How have I not seen this before? Okay, this thing is amazing. Even if you never get a creature card to leave your graveyard, this thing's still amazing because your tokens can still tap for mana. And our buggy lady over here can make little buggy boys, and if we got this thing out, we can use those buggy boys and tap for some mana. This thing's amazing. It's $3 for an uncommon. That's really good, y'all. That's really good. Also, the art is quite a vibe. And it can make tokens. Alright, our number 2 pick is going to be Alaskan Love with a Cryptolith Rite. Cryptolith Rite. Cryptolith Rite is a 2-mana mono green enchantment, and it says that we can tap creatures for mana. It's great. Cryptolith Rite. Yeah, here it is. It's 2 mana. It says that we can tap our creatures for mana. It was originally printed in the Shadows over Innistrad set about 10 years ago. It's great. It's $15 for this reprint. I think the original is around $20. It's great. It lets your creatures tap for mana. It's a lot better than that Golgari card we just saw because that only affected tokens. But that Golgari card was only $3. So we're going to do 2 more. And so Chef Boyar Dumbass, 10 out of 10 username, Chef Boyar Dumbass. You say a greater good. I quite like a greater good. I was thinking we were going to lean a lot more towards a greater good strategy in this deck, but it turns out we mostly have found access to 1/1, so I'm not sure if we'd run this in this build in particular, but when I think about Jund sacrificing creatures, sacrificing big creatures, I think about greater good. I really enjoy greater good. It's a $5 mono green 4-drop enchantment that says you sacrifice a creature, you draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, and then you discard 3 cards. So the thing that feels really fair and balanced to me about this here greater good is that discard 3 cards bit at the end. That says that you don't sacrifice anything under than 4 power, to me at least. That's how I play greater good. I really enjoy greater good. I've had a Jund sacrifice big creatures, and greater good was great. Because when you sacrifice a big creature to greater good, you get a juicy chunk of cards. You're not getting onesie twosies. You want to be sacrificing the biggest boy to get the maximum amount of cards. Our number 2 from Rasputin is going to be Gary. If Gary's white... Gary? Fuck, what is... Gary's the name. Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Okay, yeah. Grey Merchant of Asphodel is rad. He's a 5-mana mono black creature, and I actually cast him yesterday. He was real good. When he enters the battlefield, each opponent loses life equal to your devotion to black. Black devotion meaning the amount of black mana in the colored pips of your creatures, enchantments, and permanents. And then you gain life equal to the amount of life your opponent's lost. Gary's great. Gary is often a win con in mono black commander decks, in my experience. They want to put Gary out, they want to sacrifice Gary, and then they want to recur Gary from the graveyard to the battlefield to keep getting his fancy trigger. Gary can make your opponent's life totals disgusting with a single trigger. Because imagine if they have, I don't know, 10 seems good for easy math. Imagine they have 10 devotion to black. Gary enters, everyone's still alive, everyone loses 10 life, and they gain 30 life. Gary's great. Gary's $2 for this version. I imagine you can find Gary in a bulk box. Gary's great. He's a little bit of life gain. He's a great thing to recur, too, and also sacrifice. Alright, our number 1 is gonna be Diane with Momentous Fall. I am so sorry if I butchered your name. Momentous Fall. Alright guys, one more time. I am biggergayer Magic. I use green screen effects to make silly little Magic the Gathering videos all over the internet. And thank you so much for hanging out with me during live deck building. We built Zira, the Golden Sting tonight. And if you want to see any of the cards that I've talked about over here, you can check out the Moxfield deck list. And if you want to vote on what commander we talk about tomorrow, you can head to the Discord that is also in the link tree. I am having a difficult time spelling Momentous Fall. Momentous Fall. Okay, Momentous Fall is a mono green instant for 4 mana. The art's a vibe. I really enjoy the sunburst coming through. It's $5 and has additional cost to cast the spell. You have to sacrifice a creature, and you draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, then you gain life equal to its toughness. I love this. This feels a lot like Greater Good at instant speed. It's great. So you sacrifice a creature. You do want to sacrifice a large creature because you are drawing cards and gaining life in proportion to its stats. But other than that, I like it. I like it a lot. I'd run it. I would run it. I'd run Greater Good in the deck running this too. Alright guys, so once again, thank you again for hanging out with me during live deck building. I hope you all have a beautiful tomorrow, and I hope that during your next game, you all draw the perfect amount of lands. Take care, y'all.